I spent the last week driving around 1,500 kilometers in British Columbia for an EV BC road trip in a 2024 Hyundai IONIQ 6. And instead of this being a regular review, it's just going to be some things I've noticed having driven pretty much all over the southern interior portion of British Columbia. So let's start with the vehicle itself. Actually, let's start with explaining why Steph's not here. This is just a solo travel trip for me. Hyundai was kind enough to let me use this IONIQ 6 as my vehicle to get around in British Columbia. So she'll be here for the next one. With that, let's get into exactly what we have here. So as mentioned, it's a 2024 IONIQ 6. It's the rear-wheel drive preferred long range. So out of the two trims, it's the lower trim. The range comes in at up to 581 kilometers. I've had a mixed range and I've hit 100% on a charge. So a bit of inconsistencies, but no big deal. When I picked it up, I think it was close to 700. And sometimes when I pulled it off the charger at 100%, it was in the mid fives. But Hyundai rates this, as well as Natural Resources Canada, at 581 kilometers. Now that's with the 18-inch wheels. You pop that up to your 20-inch wheels, your range goes down by 90. And it ends up at 491 kilometers. So my advice to anyone looking at the preferred rear-wheel drive IONIQ 6, get the 18-inch wheels. That extra 90 kilometers of range will absolutely come in handy. So with that, power figures are 225 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. If you want more power, go up to the all-wheel drive, and power figures, I believe, are 300 and a bit, and torque comes in, I believe, in the 400. So significantly more than what we have here, but I would absolutely take this spec as is, despite some of the things that I'm not really a big fan of on this spec. So for example, it's a 6-speaker audio system, and as someone who really loves music and plays music, it's good, but I think the upgraded 8-speaker audio system would sound much better. There's no sunroof here, which helps with reducing weight and giving you more range, which is good and fine. The seats are okay. Again, having done almost 1,500 kilometers in them, they're not the most comfortable. If I were to do this again with this car, I would just get like a seat cover, something a little softer. Now, I don't think it would be a deterrent for me if I was looking at purchasing or leasing one of these vehicles. It's not bad, it just maybe could use a little bit of improvement, but that's just my small take on that. You may find these seats to be some of the best cloth seats out there. Everybody's different with different tastes and different preferences. What I do like is that out of the two trims, Hyundai has loaded this up with safety features. Yes, it doesn't have all of them, like it doesn't have the blind view monitor and a few of the other things, but what it does have is forward collision assist, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, lane follow assist. It's got the highway drive assist, which I'll talk about a lot more in about a minute from now. It's got the high beam assist as well, and the smart cruise control. Let's talk about that highway drive assist right now. So their cruise control is absolutely fantastic. You get to your speed, so my speed limit here is 90. I push a button and it stays. And obviously you can adjust your speed higher or lower as needed, but it's got the lane centering. And some people have said to me, well, it's a little on the tugging side, like it just sharply just pushes you back into your lane. I'm totally happy with that. I find zero issues. I would rather have that than something that slowly and gently brings you back into your lane. Because if the car senses it's outside of the painted lines, I'd rather a quick correction as opposed to something longer and slower. Really easy to see when it's working. A little laser comes out of the vehicle on the instrument cluster. It's a straight little green line, and that lets you know the lane centering is on as well. And it takes curves pretty well. You can't go full hands-free. This is not an autonomous vehicle, but maybe 20, 30, 40 seconds, you can go hands-free, and whether that's to, grab a drink, or if you gotta blow your nose, or whatever it is. Now, it's technology, so it's not perfect, but as far as adaptive cruise control goes with lane centering, Hyundai's one of the better, if not the best manufacturers out there in the current market that offers this kind of technology. With lots of steep inclines, I find the power to be more than adequate. Again, 225 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. The IONIQ 6 took everything that I threw at it throughout BC, and there are some really, really steep hills here, as well as steep declines, and it's as high as 17%. as far as the percentage goes for inclines, declines. At least that's what I've seen as far as an extreme one. Some of them end up at 5, 6, 7, maybe 10, 11%, or degrees. Sorry, not percent, degrees. I knew that word was wrong. I just couldn't quite figure out what the right word was, but here we are with the right word. Because it's a sedan, I found that I was a lot more connected to the road because I'm lower down to it as opposed to a crossover slash CUV slash SUV. And I know sedans aren't the most popular thing out there, but I really like this IONIQ 6. I like the way it's been packaged and just the driving dynamics behind it. And yes, it's an EV, so it's got that instant burst of power, which came in handy quite a bit when I needed just to get that extra boost. Now, speaking of the extra boost, there is no boost button like some of the Hyundai, Kia, Genesis vehicles have, but here's what I did as far as driving around BC goes for about 1,500 kilometers. I had myself an Eco, one, to get the most amount of range, and B, I'm not racing anyone. I don't need to go as fast as possible. I like the slower, enjoy the ride, keep it at the speed limit. And I don't care if people blow by me doing 10, 20, 30, 40 clicks over the limit. That's them. Let them do that all they want. Now, the good thing about me doing that is when I did come up to certain parts of the roads here, whether it's Highway 99, Highway 97, Duffy Lake Road, Trans-Canada Highway, any one of them that I've driven, even some of the side streets that took me up into the mountains, I just tapped the drive mode button, which is on the bottom left, and it went from Eco into normal, and there's your boost right there. It's a significant increase in power going from Eco up to your next one, which is normal, and then you really need some extra power, just pop into sport, get that little burst for whatever you need, and you're all set. So I think Hyundai has played it smart here with the 3 specific drive modes. Any advice that I have to offer to anyone who's looking at doing a longer road trip in the IONIQ 6, keep it in Eco for as long as you can. If you want to enjoy the ride and you want something that's really, really smooth, IONIQ 6 is one of the better ones that I've had in a long time. Let's talk about the different levels of regen, and when Steph sees this video, she's gonna say, I told you so. Now, quick background on any vehicle that has multiple levels of regen, I'm always at level 0. I don't like the pull, I don't like the tug. I don't care if I'm missing out on some of the regen that comes with going level 1, 2, 3, or one pedal driving. I just don't care for it. I like having that free-flowing feeling. When you're in the mountains, sometimes you might be a little bit of a distance between charging stations. Having that level 1, level 2, level 3, or even one pedal driving on makes a huge difference. And I gotta say, doing this long road trip has given me a whole new appreciation for the different levels of regen. And I know some vehicles either have it on or off. I believe the Mustang Mach-E has on or off, that's it. I think the Cadillac Lyric also has it on or off. It might be a couple of other ones as well, but I'm focused on this one right now. So I've had it at level 2 for the entire drive. So going down steep hills, I got a little bit of power back. My battery didn't really go down as much as I thought it would. And again, got the juice back in the battery. Overall, it did extremely well. Again, the only real complaint I have, and it's not even a complaint, it's just more of a preference of a little bit of change, just slightly more comfortable seats, just something that's got a little more support and something that has a little softer material as opposed to what this has. This is the only time I will care about not having wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I use an iPhone, and on these road trips that I do, I often stop at a lookout or a pull-off, take my phone out, take some pictures, take some video, get back in the car, and off I go. Because this specific trim only has wired CarPlay, and there are a ton of dead zones, I made the mistake only once to unplug my phone at a stop by the Fraser River and complete dead zone. And when I plugged my phone back in, nothing happened. I couldn't get my maps back up, couldn't get the music back up, and it was a new area to me. So I'm like, hopefully I'll get back into the world of some signal. So in this specific instance, wireless CarPlay wouldn't be too bad. On the good side, there is wireless charging, there's keyless entry. All the technology that you need is here. Wants are very, very different, and the all-wheel drive version of this will give you that. But again, I would take this specific trim with the, again, up to 581 kilometers of range. I don't really mind that there's no sunroof, just small little things. But on the whole, the safety's here, the technology's here. You get two of the large screens, very responsive, very, very easy to use as well. Apple CarPlay takes up the entire screen, which I love, as opposed to some of the other ends where it's only a portion of the screen. So Hyundai's done well here with the IONIQ 6, and I can see why it just keeps winning awards and awards and awards. Let's wrap up on the charging side of things. So I was here for 5 days, and I charged Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I charged Thursday afternoon around 12:30 in a small place called Lillooet. And I tried to charge at the Fairmont in Whistler. I couldn't. The very, very short version is they only have 2 charging stations that are non-Teslas. They've got, I think, a couple dozen, maybe 3 dozen of the Tesla chargers. And they have adapters that they got a couple of weeks ago that lets the Tesla supercharger network charge non-Tesla vehicles. The drawback is I had to pay $51 for valet parking if I wanted to use that adapter. I'm like, well, no thank you. I've got lots of range in the tank. I would have preferred to start today with 100% and the 581 kilometers of range. It's not the end of the world that I didn't. Right now I've got 300. I've got 79 kilometers to go. I've got 59%. So there is more than enough. I'll probably end up doing maybe 179, maybe 200 in total. I just want to make a few stops here and there along the way, get some little extra footage and some pictures, because it's not very often that I make it out to BC for a week-long road trip. But as far as charging goes, the network here is pretty good. Some of the places I was at, I believe in Manning Lake was a level 3 charger through BC Hydro. Lillooet was a level 3 through BC Hydro. In Penticton, there was a hotel and it was a level 2 at 6.6 kilowatts, but not great. And the same thing in Kelowna. That's not true, not Kelowna, Kamloops. I always get those two mixed up. But there are plenty of charging stations here. That's gonna wrap it up for this kind of sort of review, but not really review, more of a road trip evaluation on the 2024 Hyundai IONIQ 6 rear-wheel drive, long-range preferred. That's a mouthful. Last thing I will say before I sign off is there is only $3,300 separating this from the all-wheel drive model, which gives you a lot more power. And some people want the all-wheel drive, some people need the all-wheel drive. I would still save that $3,300 and go with this specific trim myself. It has everything that I need. So with that, I thank you so much for watching, and Steph and I both really appreciate the support. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. We'd love to have you join our digital community. We're active on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and I'm active on Threads for the modern motoring side. So join us there, connect with us, give us your feedback on thoughts and comments. And again, if you like what you see, feel free to tell somebody about the channel. We'd love to have more people join us in our community, and we're growing and we're doing pretty well. So we'd like to keep that going, and we'd like to have you with us. So with that, on behalf of Steph and myself, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.